Movies like this, documentaries like this, shows like this, there's a lot of people that don't want to do it because where are you going to platform it? Where are you going to put it up? But if there's a guy that could do it and pull it off, it's definitely Mel Gibson.
You could, that some of your worst nightmares were real at the time, and you think, now this is what I mean by actually starting to swim up or downstream with the rest of the salmon, you know, eventually, if you stay here long enough.
Yeah.
You'll find yourself doing that. And you have to, there's a way of doing it without doing it.
Breaking now. Mel Gibson just dropped a bombshell list naming Hollywood stars who, according to insiders, bowed to Jeffrey Epstein's twisted demands, trading secret rituals for fame, fortune, and the roles that made them legends. Could this be the elite's darkest secret finally exposed? For weeks, social feeds have been on fire after claims surfaced that Gibson has privately circulated a dossier of names, actors, producers, musicians, each said to have taken part in ceremonies that tied them to Epstein's inner network. The timing is chilling. It comes as newly released congressional files expose emails between Epstein and some of the most powerful figures in politics and entertainment. If Gibson's claims prove real, entire careers could collapse overnight.
Again, there was new names in some of the emails that I think investigators need to look at. In particular, I jumped on the name of a modeling agent who, in a similar fashion to Jean-Luc Brunel, who brought underage girls from overseas to Jeffrey Epstein for abuse. There was another man. What was interesting about this other individual is that he also apparently provided young models for Donald Trump's modeling agency.
We've learned that this isn't the first time Gibson warned of a Hollywood underworld. A resurfaced 1998 interview shows him describing weird paranoid suspicions about people in the industry, a cryptic warning that now feels prophetic. The actor admitted he once thought he was imagining things, only to realize later that some of your worst nightmares were real. That clip, just 3 minutes long, has now been viewed millions of times after a podcast host reposted it, linking it directly to the Epstein revelations. In the same breath, Gibson hinted that the power brokers of Hollywood weren't just corrupt, they were consumed by something darker. Viewers have begun calling that old footage the moment the whistle blew, decades before anyone dared speak Epstein's name out loud. After his promotional support for Sound of Freedom, a movie exposing global trafficking networks, Gibson's warnings began to sound less like eccentric ramblings and more like encrypted testimony. His brief appearance urging audiences to raise awareness struck many as more than movie marketing. The film's star, Jim Caviezel, who once played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, publicly repeated conspiratorial claims that elites were exploiting children for a rare chemical.
Now, the first step in eradicating this crime is awareness. Go see Sound of Freedom.
Gibson's voice in that campaign carried extra gravity, feeding speculation that he was hinting at knowledge he couldn't safely publish. The connection between his old statements and the new flood of Epstein documents has become impossible to ignore. Gibson's team denies he has released any official list, but insiders insist the existence of such a document is real, circulated quietly among journalists and private investigators. They describe it as a catalog of names cross-referenced with Epstein's calendars, emails, and travel records, evidence of high-level figures attending what are being called initiation gatherings. The same phrase appears in a 2011 message Epstein sent to Ghislaine Maxwell, referencing rituals and the dog that hasn't barked, a cryptic line believed to refer to Donald Trump. Weeks later, Epstein wrote to journalist Michael Wolff about a dinner with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and philosopher Noam Chomsky. Each exchange added more weight to the theory that Epstein's network blended political strategy, intellectual credibility, and celebrity glamour to mask something grotesque beneath the surface.
I think it reinforced the research that I did on my book that Jeffrey Epstein has always viewed himself as smarter than everybody else, and he also has collected people all along the way, particularly over the 2 decades through his trafficking. And that was always to get secrets and bits of information about individuals that he could pass to other people. He trafficked in.
Gibson's transformation from pariah to potential truth teller has divided Hollywood. Some see him as exploiting the hysteria around Sound of Freedom. Others believe he's finally saying what insiders have whispered for years, that certain stars owed their fame to unholy pledges. His social media clips now circulate beside leaked Epstein files that show meetings with Woody Allen, Deepak Chopra, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk. In one calendar entry, Epstein notes a film screening with Woody and Soon Yi, followed by dinner with a billionaire investor. Each revelation makes Gibson's decades-old paranoia look eerily justified. The pressure on Gibson himself is intense. He's faced denials from major studios, accusations of anti-Semitic undertones, and even false reports that he was producing a documentary about global trafficking rings. Yet, despite public rejection, the pattern remains. Every time Epstein's name reappears, Gibson's warnings resurface with it. Observers point to the irony. An actor once canceled for offensive remarks, now cast as a reluctant prophet. He told friends years ago, according to one associate, that Hollywood runs on fear. Now, that fear seems to have a face. Meanwhile, the newly opened House Oversight files have widened the circle. Among thousands of pages of Epstein's correspondence are direct references to Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and tech magnate Peter Thiel. One email even lists Woody Allen and magician David Blaine as dinner companions days before Epstein's arrest in 2019.
In the emails, it is quite clear that Jeffrey Epstein had a wide, almost incalculably wide circle of associates. People who were celebrities, people who were either in foreign governments or leaders of foreign governments, business tycoons, and the like.
Each name reignites the public's obsession with who might have joined the private flights or stepped foot on the island where, according to witnesses, ritualized gatherings blurred lines between networking and depravity. The documents also mention conversations about longevity research and meditation lessons with Chopra, as though philanthropy and darkness coexisted under one polished surface. As this storm builds, Gibson's motives remain murky. Is he seeking redemption through revelation, or has he positioned himself as the mouthpiece for a broader exposure campaign? Some analysts note that after years of exile from major studios, his alignment with anti-trafficking movements restored him to public relevance. Yet the tone of his interviews, grim, almost haunted, suggests something more personal. In one viral clip, he recalls a chilling encounter with another actor whose presence felt cold. The name he dropped then, Christopher Walken, now circulates in fan theories linking that story to hidden Hollywood symbolism. The overlap between his anecdotes and the newly named Epstein associates is too uncanny for conspiracy watchers to dismiss. Across the industry, tension is palpable. Red carpet smiles hide whispered panic. Publicists rush to distance clients from even the faintest link to Epstein's records, while online sleuths match flight logs to old movie premieres. Some believe Gibson's list simply organizes what investigators already know, that fame and silence were often exchanged for access. Others claim the list goes further, detailing the initiation acts that allegedly secured loyalty, a series of oaths and filmed ceremonies no one dares describe openly. The phrase ritual for role now trends across platforms, echoing the way insiders once joked about paying dues to get ahead.
There was people that had dinner over Epstein's house. Like Epstein had dinners and had celebrities go over his house. Like Chelsea Handler was one of the people that went over his house. I don't think Chelsea Handler is out there molesting kids.
No, I get.
You know what I mean?
No, I get that, but I think we're past that. We're beyond that point now because.
Right, you just have to be able to say, "Hey, I went to his house for dinner."
Yeah, I'm not saying because people try to do that to you with like pictures. They're like, if you was in a picture with somebody, they think,
right?
You know, but it's like it's the difference between being in a picture with somebody and being in 500 pictures with it.
Every hour, new fragments leak. Emails, voice notes, digital traces suggesting the network stretched far beyond one financier. In private forums, producers debate whether more names will drop before awards season, and attorneys quietly prepare statements of denial. Even as the Justice Department insists there is no incriminating client list, the contradictions multiply. If the official record is empty, what exactly did Gibson see that made him risk everything? His silence now feels strategic, the pause before a larger reveal. But if Gibson's list is just the tip of the iceberg, what other biological secrets are these Hollywood elites hiding? And who might be next to fall when the full truth unravels? The story kept tightening like a net. Within hours of Gibson's alleged list leaking, online sleuths were drawing lines between his warnings and the same fringe theories once dismissed as internet fiction. Claims of elite circles obsessed with youthful vitality and dark rituals promising power. We heard insiders whisper that some of these ceremonies mirrored the very rumors that made the Sound of Freedom controversy explode. Talk of substances drawn from human suffering, of gatherings meant to bond the famous in secrecy. Even though mainstream outlets race to debunk these ideas, the coincidences are hard to ignore, especially when Epstein's own emails, now public, reveal how casually he wrote about presidents, prime ministers, and media figures, as if they were all pieces on his private chessboard.
It's layers upon layers. It's those Russian nesting dolls, and you open it, and there's another one in there, and you open, there's another one in there.
Corruptions at all time, bro. The Epstein files.
I heard there's no files. I heard it's a hoax. And then all of a sudden, he's going to release the files. Well, I thought there was no files.
Man,
he wants an investigation now.
The arrogance jumps from the screen. He called Trump borderline insane, joked about powerful friends, and hinted at knowing how dirty they really were. If this was how he talked to his closest allies, what else might have been buried in conversations that never saw daylight? The contradictions are endless. Fact-checkers insist Gibson never worked directly with Epstein, yet the timing of his warnings lines up with the earliest leaks about Epstein's network. We can't overlook that Gibson's brief promotion of Sound of Freedom came just as Congress began unsealing Epstein-related files. Those documents show everyone from Woody Allen to Elon Musk on his schedules, yet most insist they met only for dinners or business. Sources close to the investigation claim otherwise, suggesting some meetings were vetting events for new entrants into the social elite. Epstein's mansion parties, described by staff as half-intellectual salon, half-initiation, echo too closely the cold encounters Gibson once described. Crew where charisma turned mechanical, and people's eyes seemed empty. Critics call those words symbolic. Believers think he was talking about the same circles now exposed by the emails.
And I think these things like Epstein, and there's probably a bunch of other similar operations that are being run, they provide you with like a really good time, or maybe you're a high profile, extremely wealthy individual, and it's hard for you to get hosed. And some guy tells you, hey, we've got everything covered. You know, you come to my island, nothing, you know, what happens on the island stays on the island.
We've noticed a pattern emerging. Every person who brushed up against Epstein's circle, even innocently, shared one trait: ambition that bordered on desperation. Former assistants say guests were divided between those chasing wealth and those terrified of losing it. One former pilot claims Epstein joked that he could build or break anyone's career with a single introduction. That same arrogance fits the stories about Hollywood elites performing secret pledges to ensure success. When we compare that to Gibson's remark from the 90s about expecting betrayal in this town, the symmetry feels deliberate, like he saw the machine from the inside. As public outrage grows, new speculation links Gibson's alleged list to a secondary network, what insiders call the protectors. These are the names that rarely appear in the emails, but surface in phone logs and flight records: financiers, spiritual coaches, and medical researchers tied to longevity projects. Epstein's fascination with anti-aging science now looks less like philanthropy and more like a cover.
I want to know how Epstein made the money that he did. I want to know what the transactions are he was involved in. And that should all be something that the Treasury Department, the FBI can get access to, because in the meantime, what we're left with is Ghislaine Maxwell effectively downplaying this whole thing. Yeah, he was a he hid it from everybody. Nobody else was involved. There's no proof of anything else. There's no blackmail. There's no foreign intelligence.
His conversations with figures like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Peter Attia blur that line between health and obsession. He wanted eternal influence, and those who entertained him, whether out of curiosity or greed, became part of a mythology that will not fade. We've also seen reports that Epstein shared the same circle with self-help leaders and actors who quietly funded research on energy harvesting, a term too strange to dismiss as coincidence. Meanwhile, Gibson's name keeps resurfacing in the noise. His critics accuse him of fueling QAnon-style hysteria, yet others claim he's being targeted for touching nerves too raw to expose. Sound of Freedom star Jim Caviezel, known for bold religious statements, told audiences that the real battle isn't in the theaters. That phrase alone sent online communities into overdrive, connecting Gibson, Caviezel, and a supposed campaign to unmask Hollywood's secret structure. Whether coordinated or not, these voices have forced uncomfortable conversations. Every denial from studio representatives only fuels suspicion that something larger is being protected. The deeper we look, the more we find strange overlaps. Epstein's calendars mention film screenings hosted by Woody Allen, dinners with political strategists like Steve Bannon, and private talks with former royals and billionaires. The more names appear, the less the story feels isolated.
Stephanie, there have also been more cases filed in court with those accusers attempting to go after potential co-conspirators.
That's exactly right, Whit. 2 more women are suing Epstein's estate. They say they were recruited by an unnamed Epstein employee. Now, this is in addition to the lawsuit filed against Epstein's longtime friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who is also accused of recruiting for him. Maxwell denied.
And that's where Gibson's alleged revelations strike hardest, by implying these were not random connections, but calculated steps in a hierarchy of silence. Insiders say Epstein didn't simply exploit people, he converted them into guardians of his secrets. If that's true, the rituals Gibson described might have been psychological rather than physical, proof of loyalty that ensured no one could walk away untouched. What truly haunts observers now is not only what these stars may have done, but why. Psychologists studying fame addiction say the constant pressure to remain relevant can erode moral boundaries faster than anyone admits. In the world surrounding Epstein, ambition became oxygen. Once tasted, impossible to live without. Sources close to former associates describe a pattern of emotional dependency, where validation from the powerful mattered more than conscience. We see echoes of Gibson's paranoia here. The fear of betrayal becomes indistinguishable from the hunger for approval, creating an atmosphere where every favor feels like an unspoken contract. To many insiders, that is the essence of the alleged rituals, a way to transform insecurity into obedience. The deeper we examine these claims, the clearer the psychological choreography appears. The same performers who mastered charm on screen reportedly learned how to weaponize vulnerability in private.
I think because this is a big problem. I mean, just related back to what we were talking about earlier with Hollywood too, is that I think a lot of these don't respect the public. They don't respect our intelligence. You know, like I think the average American is smart enough to know the difference between somebody that was just in there or somebody that testified than somebody that was banging.
Some insiders speak of controlled submission, a ritualized surrender that promised access, protection, or money disguised as opportunity. In that light, Epstein's empire looks less like a blackmail operation and more like a psychological laboratory, testing how far ambition could bend the human will. Gibson's decades-old warning about cold presences and backroom betrayals now sounds less supernatural and more diagnostic, describing the emotional void that follows when moral lines dissolve under pressure. Rumors persist that financial incentives underpinned this system, adding yet another layer of manipulation. According to sources familiar with Epstein's estate records, certain celebrities received unexplained payments routed through shell foundations, transactions small enough to avoid scrutiny, but large enough to maintain loyalty. The speculation goes that these rewards functioned like silent stipends, compensation for staying quiet or staying useful. It's a theory impossible to prove, yet impossible to dismiss, especially when so many careers inexplicably soared right after those connections were forged. In Hollywood's economy of secrets, silence often pays better than confession. That's where the psychology turns darkly fascinating. Fame is supposed to elevate, but in these accounts, it becomes a trap that feeds on itself. The actors and executives drawn into Epstein's orbit were not just chasing power. They were trying to fill the emptiness that power created. Each alleged pact or ritual, however symbolic, reinforced the illusion that they were chosen, indispensable, beyond consequence. And that illusion, insiders suggest, is precisely why the truth remains buried. Because admitting what was lost in the pursuit of immortality would mean confronting the emptiness they spent their lives performing to escape.
The idea that there would be a list does defy common sense for any common criminal. Why would you maintain your own evidentiary criminality? But to Jason Chaffetz's point, that doesn't mean there aren't clients. Just because there might not be a list doesn't mean there are not clients. And Ghislaine Maxwell could be put to the test on naming the names, creating the list after the fact of people that she saw.
At the same time, mainstream reports fight back with their own facts. Newsweek, Snopes, and others have traced dozens of viral clips to edited interviews or misinterpreted audio. Yet even they admit that not every thread can be explained. The more they debunk, the more the public notices the holes left behind. What happened to the missing footage from Epstein's cell? Why do calendars stop abruptly months before his final arrest? Why did so many names vanish from early filings, only to reappear years later, redacted beyond recognition? Gibson's warnings feel less like prophecy and more like commentary on a system designed to bury itself. Industry insiders fear a reckoning. Some predict internal investigations if more documents emerge. Others warn that too many powerful figures would fall for that to happen.
Anything wrong, they're suddenly going to be in the spotlight. And that's just a kind of a strange scenario that we're finding ourselves in. As to why they released it, I mean, look, the grand jury materials, I think, were kind of properly protected by a judge who said, no, it's not enough just that the world's really excited and wants to know kind of scurrilous details about Epstein and Maxwell. The judge, I think, properly respected the statutory protections we have.
The entertainment world is already bracing for a shift. Scripts quietly rewritten, partnerships dissolved, projects shelved. Producers tell us that fear of being linked, even indirectly, to the Epstein narrative is enough to end careers. It's no wonder so many stars now distance themselves from past acquaintances, issuing statements that sound rehearsed, stripped of emotion. That tension between denial and exposure is exactly what keeps Gibson's alleged list alive. Every unanswered question becomes proof of a hidden truth. And so we reach the moment no one in Tinseltown wants to discuss: the connection between fame and obedience, between the glamour we adore and the debts paid in silence. Could it be that the rituals whispered about in dark corners were never just myth, but the price of admission to immortality in Hollywood's hierarchy? Insiders hint that more files are waiting, that the so-called list is only a preview of what's to come. But until those records surface, we are left piecing together fragments, emails, interviews, eerie coincidences, and wondering what lies beneath the surface of that polished red carpet. As the shadows lengthen over Tinseltown's brightest stars, one thing remains chillingly clear. These alleged rituals and Epstein connections might never fully surface, leaving us to wonder if the real scandal is the silence that protects the powerful. What do you think is still being hidden, and how deep does this web really go? Share your thoughts below, and stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Until next time, stay curious, stay awake, and remember, in Hollywood, the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows.